Hi everyone, welcome back to another continuing education check-in. As always, today we're going to start with giving me some advice that I really need. And then we're going to dive into some hot topics like how to tell if a guy is a virgin. And then at the end we have a fun little segment on that we're calling a toxicology report, where we're going to talk about some toxic traits that people have. So we're just going to get started. Ethan, I have been in pain, I think, since I last talked to you about this guy. I don't know, I guess we're just going to call him the cheater because he cheated in his past relationship.
Yeah.
And I really like him, sorry. So no, I'm not trying to offend him, but it's just a good name. I think the thing that I'm having a really hard time with is he told me he did XYZ.
Yeah.
He cheated, whatever. And, I was having a hard time coming to terms with the fact, like, am I going to be okay with it? Am I going to pursue it? And I got advice from, like, a bunch of people, including you guys and, Ethan and this podcast. And, I just decided that, maybe I want to give it a shot. I didn't communicate that to him yet, but, I decided that.
Yeah.
And he was away all weekend. He was on, like, a hiking trip. And he was supposed to get back on, like, I think we had a long weekend. So he was supposed to get back on, like, Monday night. And we were supposed to hang out.
Whoa.
That's why Monday night is important. So he told me all this stuff about his ex on like Thursday, and then Monday, we were supposed to hang out like the first time after that. Mm-hmm. And he didn't text me all weekend. Like at all. Which, okay, you know what? He's hiking, bad service, sure, I can allow that. But then it was like Monday, and I was just like, and I still didn't get a text. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, well, that's kind of weird. I was like, and in my mind, because he has cheated before, I immediately I was like, oh, he probably met someone while he was hiking, and he's probably, like we said, he was like physically charged up before, but maybe he's like, like it's not just girls that like guys, and then once they get them, they're not interested. Guys are like that too.
For sure.
So I'm just like, oh, maybe he's just done. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard for me to come to terms with because I had to convince myself to give this guy a chance. Mm-hmm. And now he's like behaving like this. So I'm just really like, is it once a cheater, always a cheater? Is that like the vibe? Like, I really don't know.
Yeah. I have a lot of questions, but I guess short answer to once a cheater, always a cheater. Or I guess in my opinion, I do think that people don't change quickly. Mm-hmm. And so if this has happened recently, he has those tendencies for sure.
Right. Like they're not out of his system yet. I don't know.
Exactly. Usually.
But he talked about them. Like I felt like it was really honest that he was upfront about them, which, I don't think a lot of people who are in that position would do that.
Yeah. And awareness is always the first step.
Okay.
And it takes a lot more work to change your character. Mm-hmm. Beyond just awareness. And so it sounds like he's started to make good progress, but cheating doesn't just come out during relationships.
Right.
If you have a tendency to cheat, you have a tendency to take shortcuts in life. You have a feeling of entitlement.
Okay.
There's certain characteristic traits that are also tied to it.
Okay.
And so like if you want to see if someone is still a cheater or not, you have to look at the holistic view of them and how they act.
Okay.
But just for some context for me and for all of you, why did you decide to give him a chance in the first place?
Like after he told me what he'd done? I think I was really, as much as, there's baggage and it's messy, I feel like I'm going to be famous for saying we're old, but I feel like we're older, and I think there needs to be a little bit more understanding. I can't, when I was 13 and I was waiting for that Prince Charming, that perfect guy, like never dated anyone before, like, we're each other's first love and first ever, those ideals are kind of like going away and becoming a little bit more realistic. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know what, like it is messy, but I was trying to focus on the positive.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was so upfront about it and he owned up to what he did. Mm-hmm. And so I really was, I was just really focused on that part. And I was like, honestly, it doesn't hurt to give somebody a chance. Mm-hmm. Just because I'm allowing, I'm giving him a chance doesn't mean I'm gonna be his girlfriend tomorrow. It's just, okay, yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Like, let's see more what stuff we talk about. Like, I'm open to it.
Yeah. I think you put that in a really good way. And first of all, you can say that we're old. No one really knows how old we are unless we end up saying it.
True.
And unless you're our friend already. And so good luck guessing. But I really like what you said. It sounds like you're approaching this in a really mature way. And we understand now that life is messy, relationships are messy, and no one's perfect. And it's more important that we're learning from our mistakes, and we're also understanding that people are trying to learn from their mistakes too. And so I love how you're giving him some grace and seeing where things could go. When it comes to him going on this hiking trip and not texting you, I actually don't think this is a big deal.
Okay.
When he's away in the wilderness and I'm assuming he's not alone.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's certain people, when they're with others, they're just not on their phone.
Which I'm like that. I don't go on my phone when I'm with people. I like to give my undivided attention to who I'm around.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just the hiking. Like, I think since Monday, I've been kind of like sitting on the edge of my seat waiting, for him to suggest to make a plan, because like he knows I'm not a last minute person. If you ask me to hang out last minute, I won't do it.
Yeah.
So usually he asks me like at least a week, or at least a few days in advance, something.
Yeah.
But so he didn't get texts over the weekend, and then he comes back and I'm getting like one text like a day, and to the point that I'm reverting back to my toxic ways, and I'm like, you know what? You took 12 hours to respond, watch me take 48. Which it's not good, and I don't want to regress and go down that path. But I'm really just like, if his intentions were really clear before, now I'm taking the less enthusiasm in the texting, or the lack of, he didn't make another plan. I'm just like taking it a negative way, which I don't know if I'm being too critical. You can tell me if I am, but yeah, I'm just confused by that.
I don't think you're being too critical. I think especially at the beginning of any relationship, and right now you guys are still talking, going on dates.
Right.
It's important that you have a lot of communication, just because no one is like super clear on where they stand. And if you want things to move in a certain direction, you're going to have to take the initiative. And I think for the guys out there, this is really important to do. Don't just mess around. It's important to, if you like the person, to take initiative, plan things, and also communicate with them regularly. Or I guess in a predictable way.
Yeah, like don't rant. Like, I know a lot of toxic guys out there, they'll like love bomb you, and then they're gonna, we're gonna talk about all this stuff later, and then they just stop, and it leaves a girl questioning.
Yeah.
But really, if you want a healthy relationship, if you want things to start and progress in like a healthy way, like, you should just be consistent. You shouldn't leave stuff for guessing, I think.
I think this is what really differentiates a relationship when you're younger, let's say high school or college, and a relationship when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s. The communication just looks different. I think when you really know what you're looking for in a relationship and you want to pursue something in a mature way, you're just going to be open about what exactly you want. And if you actually want a relationship, you're going to take the actual steps to get there and not just drop texting or communicating. And maybe your intention is not for a real relationship. Maybe you just want to hook up, or you want something casual. And so if you're mature about it, you would communicate that as well. It doesn't matter what you're looking for as long as you communicate.
Yeah. And I think that's why I'm having a hard time, because he communicated he wanted not only a relationship, like a very serious relationship, We were having some like serious conversations about the past or about the future. And also the past, I guess.
Yeah.
But, and about like, where things are going to go and where people are like, But then all of a sudden, how can you go from talking about that to going away for one weekend, and then I'm hardly getting any texts? So what do you think I should do? Should I play my game and not text back for 48 hours? Or should I respond like I normally would? Like, normally, I'm not a very good texter.
I know that. Yeah.
But if I happen to see the text come in right when I'm on my phone, I usually will respond right away. Like, I won't do it out of, like, pettiness and be like, no, I'm going to make them wait.
Yeah.
So I guess, should I get petty?
You shouldn't get petty. And of course, I have to say this.
Yeah, you do.
If I'm trying to give good advice, even though I'm on your side in this situation, you shouldn't be petty. You should just text him. And if you do this, you're taking the high road for sure.
Right.
And
It's hard.
and based on how he responds to this, I think you'll know quickly whether or not he's actually serious about this.
Okay.
And then you can go from there.
Honestly, it's good. Like, yeah, actually, you're right. It's good that he's being inconsistent in the beginning.
Yeah.
So before I get too invested in anything, like, it can, land one way or the other.
Yeah. And as a guy, I think it's really helpful when the girl that I'm talking to gives some sort of feedback or reciprocates my energy in some way.
Okay.
And it's just a clear way for me to know if things are moving in a good direction or not. And so recently there was a girl that I met on Hinge, and we went out on 3 dates. She's gonna come up again in the toxicology report, but things were going super well. When we were texting, it was like the conversation was very free flowing.
Right.
We could talk about anything, quick responses.
Nice.
And when things started falling apart, she just started delaying her responses.
Right.
And that could be for one of many reasons. It could be like she wasn't interested or something else happened. Right. But I think for me, her creating a lot of distance via text just showed me that she wasn't interested. It was a strong signal.
Okay.
And so I'm worried that if you're just, trying to be a little coy,
right,
kind of reciprocate his lack of communication, then you're going to send
the wrong message.
Exactly.
Okay.
Even though you do want to see where this goes.
I do.
So I think if you really want to give this a fair shot, just communicate normally. And even though it hurts and you don't want to be the one to like put yourself out there, if he doesn't reciprocate that, honestly,
he's not the one.
Exactly. And it backs up everything we know about him so far.
True. I think I just view everything he does now with a different light. I think if this had been happening, and not because of the cheating, by the way, like he didn't even, it was a very, in the spectrum of how cheating goes, it was a very small thing. I'm not going to share all the details right now, maybe maybe in a little bit, but I think just because of the way we talked, and like I see him in a new light now, and I see him a little bit like a player. Just when he told me when he was an undergrad and he played baseball with, and like they all had this culture in his team to like talk to girls and to get it's just about picking up girls. It's not like he has a lot of physical experience or anything like that, but just that player mentality. So now everything he does, I'm like scrutinizing it a little bit more, because before I thought he was a nice guy. But now he's giving me more player vibes. For sure.
And I think something that we'll get into on this podcast is what signs to look for if someone's being a player or not. I already have some ideas, but you have to keep tuning in. And that's going to be a big topic that we're going to cover. Okay. So I think right now... Oh, actually, just to give a little context on this, and then we'll jump into our topic for today. But I don't think we mentioned last episode that you discovered the reason why his last relationship ended was because he cheated.
Okay.
I think maybe we talked about that after the episode.
Oh, my apologies, folks.
And so what Sonia found out was it wasn't physical cheating, it was emotional cheating.
Yeah.
In many ways, that could be worse.
To me, I personally find emotional cheating way worse than physical, which I know a lot of people, that's controversial. People have different opinions. But yeah, all that happened, his cheating was, text, going out of his way to find girls to text in a flirty way, in a very obviously flirty way. while he was, obviously in a very serious relationship with somebody else.
Cool. And not cool that he did that, but that is the context that we're working with. And so we're going to see how things go now.
And yeah, like I said, it wasn't physical, which kind of leads us, I feel like, into our next segment, because we're talking about, guys being physical and like basically just how to tell if a guy is a virgin. And the reason this is coming up now is because Ethan and I had a conversation pretty early on about this guy where, back when I thought he was like that good guy. Not that good guys have to be virgins. The two are not related, but I was telling Ethan that I was shocked by how physical he wanted to be, because it made me feel like maybe he's a virgin. And I think, if we think about how to tell if a guy is a virgin, like, I feel like the signs that I personally kind of like took note of was, one, that he's religious, which not all religious people are virgins, but you would just, religion dictates certain rules. And typically if you're a very religious person, like, you would try to follow those rules. So I feel like that was my main sign. But then also, I think beyond that, at least I've noticed in my personal experience, that if a guy is a virgin, he is like think about like a really excited like dog. Like when you come home, like he's super excited, he just wants to jump on you, like he has so much energy, like he can, sit there and try to make out with you for like 6 hours, and he'll be so happy about it. Versus somebody who is not a virgin, I see as like, like an old dog, like he's been living life, like he's tired, like, he's excited, sure, but definitely not the same level. And I think so that over eagerness and excitement, that physical superchargedness that I felt the first time we hung out, to me, it was showing me that, signs that he is a virgin.
And I think this is important to bring up, because what we're noticing is that there's a huge difference between a guy who has sexual experience and someone who doesn't. Because the person who doesn't have sexual experience, their tendency is they don't really know where boundaries are.
Oh, okay. I never thought of it like that.
So, like with this guy who's so physically charged up, it doesn't really matter if he was a virgin or not. Obviously, the signs, because he was being so physical, shows that it's very possible he's a virgin. The fact that he wasn't respecting when you were like...
not sending those signals back. Oh, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, because in that situation, you didn't just... When he was trying to be physical, you didn't just give in. And you were deflecting, but in a nice way.
In a very nice way,
Like, still showing that you're interested in him. But just showing that you didn't want to get physical right away. But he didn't stop there. Like, he didn't recognize that.
Oh, see, I took it as, just because, in my opinion, if you haven't had much physical interaction, I took it as like, oh, you're just so excited, like, you just can't control yourself. But I didn't ever think about like, oh, they haven't had much experience. Like maybe they're not picking up on those subtle hints that I'm dropping, and maybe, they're not able like to pick up on those and like stop themselves. So that's a very good point you bring up, Ethan.
I think what we know is that all guys are extremely physical. And it sounds like if you have more relationship experience, then you kind of know when to activate that physical side of your brain. But then if you're lacking that kind of experience, then you don't know when to have some self-control. And then you just like try to go for it every time. And so we're not trying to like tell you guys all of this so you can like walk down the street and like know if all your friends are virgins or not, but more so for the guys out there, it doesn't matter if you're a virgin or you're not, but if you're mature and you want to act like someone who has relationship experience, you're gonna respect other people's boundaries. And a lot of times it doesn't have to be a purely verbal thing that they tell you, like, hey, I don't want to just start kissing you right away.
Right.
If you're like leaning in and they're not leaning in,
if they're going for a hug instead.
Exactly. That's just it. Like, that's
right.
You should not try again that night.
Right. Yes, exactly.
The whole night.
That's what I would assume. Like, based on any dating experience, like, usually if a guy tries once and you hug them instead or something, that's it. Like, they're not going to try again. Not because they don't want to, but it's just, like you said, out of respect, they're understanding the boundary that I'm kind of setting up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take note of that, because I think that's, if you're not aware of that, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're gonna you have the potential to ruin a lot of relationships acting out of pocket like that.
I think also for the girls out there, it's good to understand that, I feel like from our perspective, we see somebody who's very eager, virgin or not, who's just very eager to get physical, and we think, oh, this guy has really bad self-control for XYZ reason, like he's not a good person. But it could also just be a little bit due to lack of experience. And, maybe we should give them a little bit of grace and, like, be a little bit understanding and maybe be more clear with our communicating.
Yeah.
Just to,
Definitely. And so that kind of transitions us into the next question, which is, does your dating experience / dating background really matter when you're getting into a relationship? I guess I'll ask you specifically, Sonia, but do you care if a guy has a lot of relationship experience or not? If he has never been in a serious relationship, is that going to stop you from even considering him as an option?
Okay, I'm going to start by giving my initial response, very childish answer.
Yeah.
Which I think we've talked about this before. I really like a kitchen that has not been cooked in. I'm very pro, like, I want to teach you. I want to tell you that you can't use a 3-in-1 body wash for your hair. And, like, I would love to be that person to do that for you, And then if somebody else had done it, it just goes to show me, like, how close you were with someone else. And, like, I don't know, maybe I'm, like, a little bit of a jealous person. But I would love that. Because, like, I would love to be your first real, very close, very intimate relationship where we are talking about skincare and where we're doing, like, I don't know, other stuff together. But realistically now, taking a step back from my childish wants, I guess, I think, so I have talked to a guy who had never had a girlfriend in his life, ever. Like, he's just, he talks to people until things start to get serious. And when the girl wants a relationship, he'll usually back out and be like, oh, you know what, never mind.
Wow.
And I did give this guy a chance. But I've also talked to people that have had, many serious relationships before me. And I personally feel like, and I guess this could be just me, that I would prefer the guy who has dating experience, but not necessarily one very serious relationship.
Okay.
So my ex had one very serious relationship before me, and it was like when he was in high school or something like that. And he, his ex was such a significant figure in his life that I knew all about her. And I don't want to know all about your ex.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think about her. I don't want to be compared to I don't want to feel like I'm being compared to something. Not like he would make comments like, oh, used to do it this way. No, he would never say that. But it's just, we'll talk about a story and then her name comes up.
Yeah.
Or I just knew what a long-lasting impact she had. And same with this cheater guy that we're talking about. I'm very scared that because of the nature of the way their relationship ended, I'm always going to be compared because she left him because he messed up. So I feel like, somewhere in the back of his mind, there's always going to be that what if. And because of how serious it was, how much history they have, it's always going to be like, oh, well, used to do this, da-da-da-da, like, So I would say yes to dating experience, but definitely for me, I would prefer no to serious relationships. What do you think?
That's kind of crazy to me because it sounds like from the outside at face value, it sounds like the type of person who fits that, who has dating experience but nothing super, super serious, is just an F-boy. It almost sounds like that's like who you're describing, but I'm sure it's not.
No, I didn't think of it like that. That's very accurate.
Yeah.
Not that I'm looking for an F-boy. I'm also looking, like, you don't have to be an F-boy. You could just be like, like a very like reserved kind of guy.
Mm-hmm.
You can talk, you can text girls, you can go on a few dates, but do you need to be living with a girl before I talk to you? Like, no, I would prefer to be the first person you live with. Like, do you need to be having sleepovers with this girl so she tells you about the 3-in-1 body wash? Like, no, like, I would prefer not.
Yeah.
But for sure, can you go on dates and go on hikes and go to the movies and paint together? Like, absolutely. Like, call her your girlfriend. But I guess, yeah, if it's like a very PG-13 kind of relationship, then I feel like, yeah, that's totally fine. That experience is welcome.
Got it. I think this whole thing that you're saying is actually a really hot take. I think most people in our day and age, in our life stage, really want someone who has relationship experience. Just because they know what kind of conversations to have to be serious. They know how to be a little more mature about things, like defining boundaries at the beginning and what are my expectations, what are your expectations. And so I think a lot of people are worried that if they start going out with someone who has no dating experience, that person won't know what to do in those situations.
Okay. You bring up a really, really good point. It's also continuing education for me, you guys.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to learn, and I think this is the first time I've ever had this conversation out loud. So it's very like, I'm making mental notes, and now that you bring it up, that guy that, like the serial dater who never made anybody his girlfriend, because I did talk to him for a pretty long time. And, and because we just stayed talking for so long, I think he realized he was getting kind of old, and he was like, okay, you know what? Let me make her my girlfriend. So I was honored and lucky enough for me to be around when he decided he wanted a girlfriend. But I think that was a very tricky relationship for me. Yeah. Because it just never felt that serious for me compared to him, because it was his first relationship, and I always took it as his like trial run. I always took it as like, oh, you know what, I'm here, like I'll cook a little in this kitchen, I'll teach him some good things so that he can take them to the next girl. Yeah. But it's mostly because we didn't sit down and have those serious conversations. Like, since he'd never had a girlfriend, I would ask him so many times, like, why did you ask me to be your, like, why now? Why didn't you do it all these other girls before? Like, and he never had an answer. Yeah. And I would ask him, because I was at a point in my life where I was very serious about my dating, because I'd already had one serious relationship. And, I knew, like, whoever I date, I would like to marry them. If I don't see myself marrying you, I don't think I will give you the title of boyfriend in my life. Like, I feel like even that title boyfriend is very earned. It's very sacred to me now. So I would ask him, like, I'm your girlfriend, but what does that mean? What is your intent? Like, it's great that your mom knows my name, but what does it mean? Right. So I do, like, you're bringing this up, and you're right. Like, that guy with, the serial dater, like it's almost like you have to teach them what their values are, and what are you looking for? Like, you have to hold their hand and be like, and explain it to them, or help them find it and figure it out. Yeah, for sure. I think we're bringing this up to give you guys our opinions and our own experiences, but I do want to make it clear that if you fall into this situation, whether you're a guy or you're a girl, you do have options. I do think in general, there are some drawbacks never having been in a serious relationship before, just because you're not super aware of signals and when to have serious conversations. And I do think if you fall in that situation, keep watching this podcast. I think that's going to help you a lot, because you're going to learn how to start and maintain healthy relationships. And so even if you don't have a lot of your own experience, we're going to be sharing our experience, and also bring in guests who have a lot of good experience that you can draw from. And then I think the other thing that you can do that's going to really help you if you fall into this situation is by talking to people in serious relationships and
hopefully you have people like that who are friends already. If you don't, I think it's good if you find friends like that through like a shared hobby or something. But
ask your parents. That's a serious relationship.
That's true. Although if I asked my parents I don't think could give me a lot of helpful advice.
Older cousins, older siblings,
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah, for sure. But I think especially people who have been in multiple relationships and people who have taken dating very seriously and also have healthy relationships right now. That means that they figured out something that works. And so don't be afraid to ask them for advice. Don't be afraid to just be friends with them so that when you are in a relationship, then you have people that you can lean on and ask and support you.
And we're always here too, so you can send us like messages and we'll try to address your questions and concerns.
Yeah, definitely. And we can definitely do that on the podcast too, and share your concerns with everyone and also address it and answer it. But definitely, I think this can go both ways. It could be an advantage to date someone who has experience or date someone who doesn't have a lot of experience. I think as long as at the end of the day, the person that you're considering as a potential partner is mature, they're open-minded, they can take constructive criticism, I don't think it should really matter.
And they should know what they want.
Yeah.
Definitely know what they want.
Yeah. They might not know how to get there.
Right.
They might know like, oh, I want a relationship that leads to marriage. And that's going to be a journey that you go through together. But honestly, in my opinion, it doesn't matter how much relationship experience they have. Based on your personal preference, you might have one that you prefer, but I think we're making an argument that no matter what you prefer, as long as you make sure that that other person is able to learn and has a good attitude towards dating.
And they have to be willing to have that conversation, even if you've been in a bazillion, real lasting relationships, if you're still not ready to sit down and have that conversation of like, what do you want? Like, what are your goals? Like, what is like, you really have to figure yourself out to enter a relationship with somebody else. And I think that is like the critical thing. Like, what do you want out of the other person?
Yeah, exactly. And so this has also been part of my experience doing online dating. I've been using Hinge for a few months now, and it's actually really interesting to me how many people out there don't know exactly what they're looking for. And that's okay. Yeah. But I think a lot of them think they know what they're looking for, but then they're either not clear about it or they're lying to themselves. And so I've met people where they say that they want a serious relationship, something that's going to lead to something long term, but they're not in a place where they're willing to communicate. Maybe that's just part of their personality, but I feel like if a serious relationship is what you want, even though it's extremely uncomfortable, communication is part of that package. If you're buying into that, you have to let them know if things are not working out. You have to let them know if you want things to change. And so the point is that as long as you are able to know what you want and communicate it and find someone who is willing to work with you, then I think you're setting yourself up well. Cool. And circling back to guys who lack or don't lack relationship experience, we talked about how if you lack relationship experience, if you're a virgin, then you're gonna be physically charged up. You won't know where to draw boundaries. And so the next thing that I think I want to talk about is if you fall in that situation, whether you're a guy or a girl, how do you flirt well? How do you navigate or like push the relationship in a direction to become more vulnerable or open up with the other person rather than just trying to kiss them or like be extremely physical right off the bat.
Okay. So like regardless of your experiences, like how do you flirt? Okay. Ethan, do you want to tell us what do you do typically when you're flirting with a girl?
Right. So I think the first thing that I just want to get off the bat is being physical too quick is never the right thing to do.
Definitely agree.
and so definitely starting off with complimenting the other person. Things that you genuinely notice about them that stand out and are not like other girls or other guys that you've met.
Okay.
And so I think a lot of times if you have to start with physical, that's okay, like complimenting their nails or their shoes. But I think very quickly you want to pay attention to the little things and what kind of conversations you guys are having. Is she really intelligent? Is she really family oriented? How does she treat other people? And those are things that if you want to flirt, to point those things out and let her know that you're noticing them is really good, because you want her to know that you see her outside of just how she looks and that you're really paying attention to her as a person.
Damn, Ethan, even you just giving those examples, I was just like feeling all warm inside.
Really?
It's like those are really good compliments to receive. Like I completely agree with that. And I also do agree 100% with what you said. Like you have to compliment the little things. Even if it's physical, like, you know, like if she wears earrings, like maybe she changed her earrings. You can compliment that. That's such a tiny little change. I know for guys it's not always easy to tell when, you know, girls have just had their hair cut or colored or anything like that. But, you know, you can compliment, you know, the very, very small things, or like if she did her makeup a different way, you know, like normally she doesn't wear much color and today she has blue eyeliner on. You can say if you like it or not, you know? So it's just like the very, you know, like if she likes makeup and you compliment, oh, I like your blue eyeliner. It's like he's paying attention to all the little details. And it's a very good start to flirting.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I forgot what I was going to say next, but, I remember. So I think also just being very intentional and also showing her that you're thinking of her in little ways goes a long way when you're trying to flirt. And so
even after you are in a relationship, it goes a long way.
Yeah,
things.
Yeah. And these are things that we're saying is good to get the relationship off on the right foot, to show that you're genuinely interested, you're not just trying to be really physical. But these are also things that you should always keep doing in a relationship. No matter how old you are, no matter how long you guys have been together, you should always compliment the people around you. And okay, so the other thing I was going to say was doing the little things, being intentional, buying flowers, or when you see something at the store that reminds you of them, you either buy it or you text them and say, oh, this reminded me of you today. This happened and I thought of you. And
very cute text to receive.
Yeah, and it also makes it clear that you're thinking about that person and you're making an effort that goes just beyond like everyday effort. And then once you know what they like, suggesting things that are fun for both you and her or you and him, and really cater to what you guys enjoy doing. And I think that's another big, or not big, but like little thing that you can do that goes a long way.
I think flirting, like people take it as like, you know, I think a lot of people in their minds, they're like, oh, flirting is this big thing. Like, oh, girls only like money. Like you have to buy her like a nice purse, or you have to like take her out to the most expensive, like, or, you know, like you have to send her the biggest bouquet. No, you can pick flowers like on the streets if it's legal to do so. And just if you put the effort to wrap it yourself and, you know, to put a little bow on it, that's her favorite color, like that goes 1,000 miles farther than you just go and buy a bouquet that you like of flowers that she doesn't even like. I would prefer no flowers than you getting me flowers that I don't like. And I'm not trying to be like ungrateful. It's just it's not about the flowers. It's about the thought. Like, do you like you're giving me flowers to show me how much you know me. You know? So I don't care that you get me these really expensive flowers. Like, I don't like roses. If you're going out of your way, you're buying these expensive roses, like yeah, I'll be happy, but if you actually know me, if we've been talking for a certain number of time, like months, you should know which flowers to get me. I'd rather you get me one of the flowers I like than a huge bouquet of flowers that I don't even like. You know? Like, as a girl, I think, and I'm sure as a guy too, like, I think when you're flirting, like in those early stages, like you just want to know and feel that the other person understands you.
Yeah.
You know, they understand the little things. They notice the little things. They care about the little things. And that's a lot what Ethan was hinting, you know, like you're at the store, you see a Build-A-Bear. And you know she used to love Build-A-Bears when she was little. If you just send a picture of the store, no one's telling you to buy her the bear.
Yeah.
You know, but just like Ethan said, just to be like, oh, didn't you used to play with Build-A-Bears? Like, this is so cute. Like, anything. It doesn't have to be huge.
Right. And you can also turn that situation into your advantage by sending her a picture and saying, let's go here next Saturday or something.
Oh, they're amazing. Yeah.
And so, like, you get a date, and then you also are, like, building up some chemistry.
Yeah.
And shared experience. Yeah. Awesome. And so now we're going to get into our segment. We're calling it Toxicology Report. But this is going to be a lot of fun because we're going to present you with 2 situations. And Sonia and I are going to rate how toxic the person is being in these situations. And so the first situation is something that I went through. What happened was this is when I first started using Hinge. I matched with a girl. This is maybe 2-3 weeks in, pretty early. And well, at this point I was matching with a lot of people. You guys saw my profile, so
It's probably not. Clearly.
I'm joking just a little bit. But I matched with this girl, and this is the same girl I was talking about earlier. We went out on 3 dates. Things were going super well. There are times where we were just texting back and forth for hours at a time. And that's pretty rare. It's not easy to do. At that point, I would honestly rather FaceTime.
Yeah.
But that's like we really got along, and when we were on these dates, we were able to talk about anything we wanted. We were talking about things that were really important to us, like our families, therapy, our friends. It didn't really matter, and we were able to talk about all those things. Nice. And then it also felt like our values were really aligned. Nice. And so I saw a lot of potential with this girl. And what happened was, after our 3rd date, I texted her that night, and I always do this after a date, but I'll text the other person telling them that I really enjoyed seeing them, and then usually I'll say, I would like to see you again if I mean it. Yeah. And that night, I think I just texted her that I had a lot of fun, and this was right before Thanksgiving, and so I knew she was going to be busy during that whole week, because she's a teacher and she gets that whole week off. She's going to be away with family, so I didn't even bother like trying to schedule another date. And after I texted her, that was a Wednesday night, she never replied. And so this is kind of weird. And I don't know if anyone watching out there has gone through a situation like this, but there's no reply, and I try not to think about it too much, as like she's probably busy. Right. Try to give her the benefit of the doubt, right, but also trusting that the foundation was like there was something there that I didn't really have to worry, even though she wasn't communicating. And so I ended up double texting her, and I texted her. So that was Wednesday. I texted her on Saturday, and I knew she had an event at school that she was planning, so I asked her how it went. And then she replied that night. And so she told me about the event, and then she asked how my weekend was going. And at that point, I was like, oh, this is awesome. I was just kind of overthinking, but there's still like communication going on. She's continuing the conversation. This is a good sign. And so I replied to her, and then she got back to me the next day on Sunday. And then she told me that her cat got fleas.
Okay.
And so she's like, OMG, things have been so crazy. We're trying to get the fleas off my cat, putting him in different baths. And then she asked me if I had Thanksgiving plans, because that was right before Thanksgiving. And so I told her about my Thanksgiving plans, but I asked her, it was kind of a weak question, but I asked her like if she was at home already, or if she didn't make it home because of her cat.
Right.
And
I don't think that's a weak question.
Thanks. It's like
Ethan's game is just too good. For him, it's weak.
Actually, you haven't seen my full game yet, Sonny. I don't know if you can say that, but I appreciate it. And so actually, since then, this is like right before Thanksgiving, no text back. And so I realized later on, the reason why I knew that I had no more chance and why I kind of gave that up was because later that week, I saw that she updated her Hinge profile. And I know, like, I've talked to my friends out there, and people will update their dating profiles for no particular reason. Sometimes you're just keeping things up to date. But I think for me, thinking about like how I've been trying to build things up and try to escalate towards being exclusive, and then seeing that happen was just like a big anti.
Yeah, because you were trying to take her off the apps. And
exactly.
she was updating her profile with the intention of continuing to use.
Yeah. Maybe the intention was not super clear. Like maybe she wasn't thinking too deep about it.
Right, yeah.
But
she wasn't planning to update and then get off the apps.
Right. And so then I realized this happens a lot in general, where it's not true ghosting, but you're using a method called breadcrumbing. And some people call it the sprinkle method too, where you're letting a conversation die out slowly.
Right.
And the other person doesn't catch on at first because you're asking them questions too.
Yeah.
And you're like giving good answers.
Right.
And maybe,
but it's not the same as much texting and as good communication as it was before.
Exactly. And so that's when I realized like that happened to me. And it doesn't feel good, but this is our first situation. How toxic are we going to rate this type of person who lets the conversation die slowly, does not make it clear what they want and also how they feel about how things are going on, and they will just let it die. They'll hop back on the dating apps and just start talking to other people and not
close anything off.
Exactly.
You know? Like leave it open.
Yeah.
I think in your specific case, because you guys were so close, those 3 dates were so intimate and you guys were vulnerable with each other, you guys, had the same values. I feel like in your case, I would give her a toxic rating of like, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would give her like an 8.5. I think it's pretty brutal. Like, I think it depends on how close you get to people, because I was also on the dating apps like a few years ago, and I would also match with a bunch of people, and I had people that I would just they would just text all the time. Every weekend there would be that text of, oh, what are you doing this weekend? But nothing would ever materialize, and I feel like and then eventually I just stopped. I started maybe breadcrumbing them a little, and I just my responses got drier, and then I was like, you know what? Why do I have a Snapchat streak with somebody that I've never met? Like, you don't exist in my life. Like, we don't have a connection. So I eventually I cut things. I, blocked them, removed them, unadded them. But I think because there was no base.
Yeah.
So it was like easy. Yours, because there was such a strong foundation that was being built and there was so much more emotions involved, I think it makes it so much more toxic. Because I'm not saying you guys were in a relationship, but because you guys were, getting there, you were in the talk, in the seeing each other stage, which is a very important stage, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the way she chose to exit out of that stage. I think that's really bad.
Yeah. And I guess there's a few things I want to say. If there is no emotional connection, like what you're saying, Sonia,
Mm-hmm.
if you're just like talking on the apps or anything, and I think if you do that, that's probably not that toxic. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a 1.
100%, yeah.
And that happens like all the time.
Yeah.
And
it's still bad. It's still not very mature. You know, like if you're trying to self-improvement, like I'm very pro, like sit down and like, you know, talk and communicate like, oh, you know what, actually not interested.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, yeah, in those early days of when you meet someone on an app, you transfer to other apps and you're talking and the conversation doesn't go anywhere. It's easier at that point because you don't owe that person an explanation.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is something that I've done too.
Mm-hmm.
Like just slowing a conversation
Yeah.
down. It's not really getting anywhere.
It's like a people pleaser way of, you know, ending things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I don't want to officially hurt you and be like not interested, move on,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but I will just distance myself because I'm not actually feeling that interested.
Yeah. And so if you've never been on the apps, this is something that happens a lot. And so if you ever do get on the apps, don't get discouraged when this
Yeah.
happens. I don't think anyone...
Means anything by
Exactly.
it. You're going to find yourself doing it to others too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kind of agree with you. In my situation, I think the other person was probably at an 8.5.
Yeah.
And I think the toxic rating is so high because it would have been so easy to just communicate.
And
so
even she owed you an explanation, I feel like. Like, I just feel like I gave it such a high rating because I feel like you deserved, like, an answer. Because of how serious things were between you guys, I feel like you deserved, like, a conversation.
Yeah. But if she was in this room right now, she would tell you that it wasn't that serious.
Okay.
And so if you're on the other side, you wouldn't think it's that serious. You would also
Right.
think it's kind of a normal thing to do. And
Okay.
definitely in this generation, it is. But it's the alternative, just sending a really quick text. Hey, I enjoyed getting to know you, but I don't really see this going anywhere, or I'm not feeling this anymore, or I'm talking to someone else.
Right.
Is just... It's like a one-liner kind of text.
Right.
Makes things really clear, cuts things off
Yeah.
clean. I'm not left wondering what happened, or figuring out later that I've been on the receiving end of breadcrumbing. I think that's what makes it pretty toxic.
Right.
Yeah. And so if you're ever in this situation, if there's no emotional connection, I think doing this is okay. But I do think that if you're ever in a position where you could choose to breadcrumb someone, send them a one-line text.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to formulate these texts.
Yeah.
I do think at some point it would be nice if even on this podcast we had like a list of pre-made texts just like for different situations that would help you guys like know how to structure text for a certain situation. But you can just ask your friends to help you, or you don't have to be the one to send the text, but just even one line letting them know you're not interested anymore is...
And
it's a job done really well.
from experience, I would 100% recommend sending a text instead of a call.
Yeah.
I think if you agree to have a call with that person that you're trying to let down and say, you know what, sorry, like I'm not feeling it anymore, like, you know, we should stop talking. I think the moment, you know, whether they're guilting you, whatever, to get on a call, it's like a losing battle. You won't be able to do it. So just those pre-written texts, I think, are a really good idea.
Yeah. My situation is also pretty specific because we're in that talking stage, seeing each other. But then I think this happens a lot even when people are in an early relationship or a relationship that doesn't have a lot of structure yet.
Right.
And so I do think that if you're in that situation, you should just tell them to their face.
Yeah.
And like meet up in person, tell them.
Oof, in person, those are hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are really hard.
And so don't just jump into a relationship just because if you do have to end things, which is totally natural.
Yeah.
I personally think you should tell them in person. And so I think Sonia and we both agree, like, you should not take relationships lightly.
Yeah.
it's important to like know what you want, but then also communicate when it comes down to it. Okay, another situation, we're gonna rate how toxic it is when you're going out on a date. This has happened to me a lot. And so nowadays people go back and forth on this, but in general, if you're a little more traditional when it comes to dating, the guy usually pays for the date. And nowadays it's becoming a little more common for you guys to split the bill.
Right.
But I would say if you're a guy listening, you should definitely pay for at least the first date. And you should
especially if you want a second date.
Exactly. And you shouldn't even question if she offers or anything. You should just shut it down
100%.
And pay. And just like put on your big boy pants and do it. But I think a lot of times when I was going on dates, what I was finding was I would pay and then they wouldn't say thank you. And this would happen multiple times. Not even just on the first date, but on
every
following
subsequent
dates.
date. Okay.
And maybe this is like something that girl was just not aware of.
Right.
I don't think so, because she had a lot of dating experience.
Right.
But how toxic are we going to rate something like that?
Okay, I need to ask a question. I feel like I have a lot of dating experience, but I have never, ever in my life ever said thank you.
Whoa.
After somebody pays on a date. It's not that I'm not appreciative.
Yeah.
I am. It's just, I feel awkward to talk about money. And so when somebody, you know, like I'll always offer to pay, whatever, but not always. Let me be honest.
Okay.
But when somebody pays, you know, like I'm appreciative of it, and I'm like, wow, like that was like, and I'm very considerate of other people, and like I'm like, oh, that was a lot of money, like da. But I think it's like, how do you say how would you like somebody to say thank you to? How have people said thank you?
They just said the words thank you. Like I put my card down, they said thank you, and then we moved on.
That's it.
That's it.
Not like, oh, thank you for this meal, it's so nice of you to pay. Like, not a whole sentence.
No.
You just need a thank you.
Yeah.
And you want it, or you have gotten the thank you at the dinner table when you're putting your card down. Not when you're walking out of the restaurant like, oh, thanks for getting dinner. Like,
oh, that has happened too.
Okay. Because I have personally partaken in this toxic action.
Well, we haven't decided if it's toxic or not. Maybe it's not.
Maybe it's just like a courtesy thing. Like, I think some people just don't know that you're like, I know I'm thankful for it, but it just feels, I didn't know you're supposed to explicitly say it. Like you said, in traditional dating, like there's just an understanding that the guy pays. And that doesn't mean that I'm not grateful for it, but it's just, I didn't know that also in that traditional dating thing that you should say thank you. I think some people, but just like even with all their dating experience, they might just not know.
I think when it comes to dating in general, you always want to make the other person feel appreciated.
Right.
And usually like that happens when things get more serious. But in general, like if that person is taking you out, planning a date, I feel like that goes a long way to reassure the other person that they're doing something right and that you just are thankful for it. But I do want to I do want to ask you, okay, you didn't say thank you. At the end of the day, those are just 2 words.
I know.
But do you think you've shown them that you appreciated the effort that they made in other ways?
I think so. I find it just, like I said, hard to just say it because money is just an awkward topic.
Yeah.
But I think I do like to show in like, you know, my actions. Like I'll give them a hug or maybe like a kiss on the cheek, like something to show that I'm thankful. And it doesn't have to be necessarily physical. Like even a text, like, you know how you say, I really like that you said, you know, after a date, you like to text them and be like, oh, like I had a really good time. Regardless of if I'm going to see them again or not, I always like to also send that text like, oh, that was I had a really good time. And I feel like that is my way of saying, you know, thank you. Like I see how much effort you put in. I see how much money you put in. Like I'm just saying I had a good time for all of it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to see you again in some cases, but you know, that's kind of the way I say thank you. Like I think even when the waiter comes with the bill, I feel really awkward. You know, like when the person's pulling out their wallet and they're like opening it up, like I think because I've just been raised as such like I've been raised very much to do things for yourself. So it doesn't sit right with me when I see the other person pulling out their card, so I just feel awkward in that moment, and I can't speak.
Yeah, I feel that. And I think in your situation, that's totally okay, because you're giving them a sense of reassurance in other ways.
Right.
And so...
Did this girl not give you anything to show you that she was thankful afterwards?
I think the reason why I wasn't so happy about this was because she didn't say thank you. It just felt like she didn't put in any effort on her side. And so even when I texted her after, she would respond and say, oh yeah, I had a good time too. But she wasn't the first one sending those texts. Right. And I think if she was the one, like when she got home, to say, hey, I got home safely, thank you for taking me out.
Right. I do that text all the time.
or like I had a nice time. It doesn't have to be the words thank you.
Right.
I wouldn't have minded at all.
Okay.
It's just, so I don't think what you did is toxic at all.
I think I'd like to say for this, I would like to say personally that I don't think it's toxic if you don't say thank you. But I do think it could be, I think that's just a courtesy thing. And I think everybody watching, girls, guys, just say thank you. Like you said, it doesn't take that much effort. It might be, maybe if you're not used to saying it, like it's like quick, short, like say it in whatever way you feel like, text afterwards, whatever it is. So that should just be like a general dating rule going forward.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to do it too. But I think in terms of not saying thank you being toxic, I don't think that itself is toxic. But I think if you're, people that go on dates too, because I've heard a lot of my girlfriends, like a lot that are like, oh, like, I don't have groceries this week, so I'm just going to go to dinner. Yeah. I'm going to go on a date.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling like the girl is just using you for your money, that is absolutely toxic. There's no doubt about it. But I think the saying thank you, not thank you, I feel like the jury's still deciding on that one.
Well, I think we both agree. We'll give it a toxic rating of 0. Yeah. But it just goes a long way if you do make them feel appreciated in some way.
It's good dating etiquette.
Yeah. The crazy thing is with that girl in particular, she was telling me that her friends do the same thing. She's like, my friends will just go out on dates with guys just for a free meal. I was like, okay, like I get that. And then she made me feel that way.
Like you're used.
And I don't think she even noticed that.
Right.
But just the fact that she didn't do any of the planning and she didn't pay, and then she didn't take the initiative to like text after.
Yeah, or just to show that it was appreciated. Your effort was appreciated. And I feel like, I think I've told Ethan this before, just while we're on the topic of money and like dating. I personally believe if you're on a first date and if you feel like you want to see the girl again, the guy, you should, or the girl, whoever is taking you out on the first date, you should pay for the full bill. There's no splitting. But I feel like as because it's hard to earn money. Like, it's hard to work.
Yeah.
And everybody has, like, financial goals, etc. So I feel like if you're on a first date and you don't see potential for a second date by the end of it, because it's a good timing, the bill comes at the end. So if you've decided you're not going to see this person again, I don't think you, like, even if you're a guy, you can just suggest, you'd be like, oh, do you want to split it? I don't think anybody should lose money on an interaction that isn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I think that's fair. This is definitely a big topic, and so we'll have to like revisit this at some point. I think that's a fair point.
Yeah.
But thank you all for tuning in to another episode. This was a lot of fun, and so if you ever have any comments or questions, feel free to comment or just DM us and let us know like what segments that you like and what kind of things you want to see more. Definitely topics that you're interested in hearing more about. We would love to address those. And so until next time.
Bye.